Hello and most welcome to H780. We're rushing about here. The lectures just start coming and going. And I will take a different turn now to sort of smooth everything and dwell into general economy. General economy is very interesting, and I tried to grasp it many years ago, 2 decades ago, I think, and it's a construction of the French philosopher Georges Bataille. We were earlier speaking about Winston Churchill, and he was often called a warmonger, and one could say that Georges Bataille is also a warmonger. If you look at his name, it makes the indication that he could be warlike. His general economy means that you create a space where things can happen that goes in different direction and are different. And what I try to mention here is that could actually include 2 theories, mutually exclusive. Do we have any of those theories? My good friend Kalle here could mention one example.
Yeah, quantum physics and classical physics.
Yeah.
And they should be mutually exclusive, although.
And also within quantum mechanics, we have 2 theories mutually exclusive.
Passive and active observer. I don't know what you mean.
We have one theory about the wave.
Okay.
And then we have one theory of the particle, and they are actually mutually exclusive. They cannot be at the same time. So when we talk about the theory of quantum mechanics, it's not a theory in regular sense, one theory. It's, however weird it might sound, is actually theories within the theory who contradict each other. So you say, more or less within quantum mechanics, I am wrong. And this is something that the writer Arkady Plotnotsky tried to explain using the concept of supplement. And supplement is something from Rousseau originally, and Derrida saw it as an inessential extra added something complete in itself. And the regular physics, classical physics, is doing just that. It's actually constituting a supplement. And what it supplies us with is a coordinate system. It supplies us with origin, an origo, usually called the subject. And it supplies us with empty space. All these things are according to quantum mechanics supplement. And they sort of indicated something is missing. And what could be missing is the idea of inclusiveness of exclusive theories. And that sounds very Derridaian, that you allow for contradictions somehow, you let them flower and be what they are, contradictions. That is something that classical physics try to avoid, and therefore they get a lack, and the lack is an original insufficiency. It's lacking something. And it's lacking the reality. And what do you do if you have a lack? Well, you need to add something. What do I do if I feel thirst? Well, I had to give myself some water or something. I'm completely dry in my mouth, I need some water. This is the same with classical physics. And this is a very interesting way of putting it. One thing to look at it is think about the reality as an economy, almost like a general economy that we have around us. We talk about producers, consumers, consumer groups, production lines, consumerism, everything that goes into that is in a bit contradictory. It allows for everything. What drives it is rather its inherent will or intention, if you like. And that is what makes it real. And this is exactly what classical physics lacks. It lacks an intention. It's not going anywhere. It's not only static. It has a center somewhere. Whereas a general economy doesn't have a center. What would that center be? Nobody knows. There are actually people who try to put the center in general economy. I won't go into that, but one of those fellows was called Karl Marx. But today it's seldom done because it cannot be done. And as in the example with Karl Marx, that created an original insufficiency, a lack. And he needed to cover that, and he added things. He added supplement to his theory. I think this is a most interesting way of going about the things. And what you cannot avoid, why not accept it instead, seems to be the message from quantum mechanics. Contradictions are completely unavoidable, and maybe instead of shunning them off and creating this lack, why not open up our arms to them and understand this is something good for us, something that we can thrive in. It's almost like a sort of fertile ground which much more can grow and be harvested once you get rid or maybe sort of convince this tendency of not liking contradictions and wanting them to disappear somehow. This is often called, this is a fun word, and I don't even know how to interpret it, but I like to write it anyway. Hard to pronounce. I'm going to try. Anti-epistemology. So what general economy is can be said to be an anti-epistemology. And some people would at first look, say, oh, this is a complete neglect of knowledge itself. The origin of knowledge cannot be had when we have two theories that are mutually exclusive. Of course not. And therefore, we have created something horrific, a Frankensteinian monster. And this is called the anti-epistemology. And I have to completely agree here. I say, hooray, yes, that is what it is. That's one of the best words I had heard in a long time. And to even imply that it would be something negative, I think that's funny enough. Epistemology is how to understand how we know. And why anything, such a thing, should ever be invented, I don't know. It's beyond my grasp. It's obviously a nil position. We don't ever think about how we know things. Never. It doesn't exist in this world. Therefore, I really like this idea of the anti-epistemology. It's more or less like a nothing. You can't even call it a unicorn, because a unicorn could have existed somewhere. But epistemology can never exist nowhere. It's to use our new favorite expression, it's a nil. It doesn't occupy any space. it's a no space. So it's not a nothing, it's not a something, and therefore, of course, in a way, anti-epistemology is nothing as well. Yeah, it's nothing, but it's still fun. What is a joke? It's still fun. You can still laugh at it. And maybe it could be some sort of Edward de Boonian humor at the bottom of reality. Edward de Boon always said that in the very bottom of thinking is humor. And without humor, there can be no thinking. And what he meant, things have to be mutually exclusive to consist of thinking. Because if you're not having contradictions, there is no thinking. Vaguely, I start to connect that to what David Badger said, because these different squares that I took out, they are bound to be contradictory when you choose. Because the actions in some ways or in all ways contradict each other. They have to, because it's a system of contradiction. That's actually the original force in the whole system. So I like this idea of a supplement, and we earlier described this supplement, how it works. We were using this analogy from Rosen. He talked about almost like an imagery, an object in space in front of a subject, and that's quite brilliant. It doesn't consist of a proper imagery, because you can never imagine that to happen. It doesn't make any sense, because if you imagine that, you would be another subject who has the imagination of a subject in front of an object in space. And this is exactly a thing that's not possible in a general economy. You can't lift yourself out of the situation at looking at something. When you measure something, you are there. You can't remove yourself, ever. And this is, of course, what constitutes the original lack. It's the removal of yourself and putting yourself outside the picture that actually creates the original lack. And therefore, you need to construct this supplement. So you see, they co-help each other, or co-force each other to their own existence. One imagery thing creates the other one. And by creating these two, we got sort of a binary opposition, and it can have its really, really weird life by itself, but it still is not a thing. It's not enough to be contradictory to come to existence. I think that's the point of Georges Bataille. It's a little bit, you can't say that there are things outside of the general economy. Like Wittgenstein would have said, there's nothing outside of the language game. Or this misquote of Derrida, il y a pas dehors du texte, something like that. It's nothing outside of the text. So when you want to look at things outside of the text, which you can't because it's a nil position, you get a perceived lack, and you try to fix this perceived lack by putting in a supplement. And the supplement is, of course, the coordinate system with its empty space. Those things seem to be needed, but I'd say the only thing that keeps them alive is the perceived binary opposition. And as long as we give position 1 or 0 to this, 0 could be that we criticize it, we criticize epistemology, that we put it into existence somehow, because 1 and a 0 create each other by being different. Nil doesn't do this. Nil just says nothing is outside of the text or nothing is outside of the language game. Georges Bataille is implying that the general economy, it's not a limitation, it's an opening. Just by being decided from inside, you get possibilities. Because if you say there is a line somewhere, you have possibility to make something. Because you start with a line, you have somewhere to start. Whereas in classical physics, you don't have a starting point. You are nowhere to be found. No wonder you feel some sort of original lack. I'm not standing on anything. And I think that's another subject, but I would say our inability to actually be balanced on our both feet is exactly the same. There's no difference there, because there's no difference in inside and outside. Lesson we already learned from the Klein bottle. That's how space works. And in order to have this lack, we need to be unbalanced. We need to sort of wiggle between our heels and our toes. What we should do is to balance up. And we do that by balancing up what we think about the world and our body. They are contradictory in some ways, but we should do it at the same time. And as a reward, we get a healthy general economy, which is also balance. Okay, this short lecture is going to be rounded up here. I say thank you very much and meet you in some time. Bye bye for now.
Thank you.